Salutations, my friends, and welcome back to our romp through the cemetery of a town called Spoon River. If you haven't listened to part one of this poetic saga, I highly recommend you give it a hearing. But if you're listening to this first, we are reading from Spoon River Anthology, a collection of poetry by Edgar Lee Masters. This collection is comprised of the thoughts and memories of the dead of Spoon River, who are all sleeping on the hill. So, with that said, let us get on with our little seance and see what the dead have to say. I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Kinsey Keene. Your attention, Thomas Rhodes, president of the bank. Coolbach Whedon, editor of the Argus. Reverend Pete, pastor of the leading church. A.D. Blood, several times mayor of Spoon River. And finally, all of you, members of the Social Purity Club. Your attention to Cambronne's dying words, standing with the heroic remnant of Napoleon's guard on Mount St. Jean, at the battlefield of Waterloo, when Maitland, the Englishman, called to them, "Surrender, brave Frenchmen." There, at the close of day, with the battle hopelessly lost, and the hordes of men no longer the army of the great Napoleon, streamed from the field like ragged strips of thunder clouds in the storm. Well, what Cambronne said to Maitland, ere the English fire and made smooth the brow of the hill against the sinking light of day, say I to you, and all of you, and to you, O world, and I charge you to carve it upon my stone. Benjamin Pantier. Together in this grave lie Benjamin Pantier, attorney at law, and Nig, his dog, constant companion, solace and friend. Down the gray road, friends, children, men and women, passing one by one out of life, left me till I was alone with Nig for partner, bedfellow, comrade in drink. In the morning of life I knew aspiration and saw glory. Then she, who survives me, snared my soul with a snare which bled me to death, till I, once strong of will, lay broken, indifferent, living with Nig in a room back of a dingy office. Under my jawbone is snuggled the bony nose of Nig. Our story is lost in silence. Go by, mad world. Mrs. Benjamin Pantier. I know that he told that I snared his soul with a snare which bled him to death, and all the men loved him, and most of the women pitied him. But suppose you really are a lady, and have delicate tastes, and loathe the smell of whiskey and onions, and the rhythm of Wordsworth's ode runs in your ears, while he goes about from morning till night repeating bits of that common thing. Oh, why should the spirit of mortal be proud? And then, suppose you are a woman well endowed, and the only man with whom the law and morality permit you to have the marital relation is the very man that fills you with disgust every time you think of it, while you think of it every time you see him. That's why I drove him away from home, to live with his dog in a dingy room back of his office. Reuben Pantier. Well, Emily Sparks, your prayers were not wasted. Your love was not all in vain. I owe whatever I was in life to your hope that would not give me up, to your love that saw me still as good, Dear Emily Sparks, let me tell you the story. I passed the effect of my father and mother. The milliner's daughter made me trouble, and out I went in the world, where I passed through every peril known of wine and women and joy of life. One night, in a room in the Rue de Rivoli, I was drinking wine with a black-eyed coquette, and the tears swam into my eyes. She thought they were amorous tears, and smiled for thought of her conquest over me. But my soul was 3,000 miles away, in the days when you taught me in Spoon River. And just because you no more could love me, nor pray for me, nor write me letters, the eternal silence of you spoke instead, and the black-eyed cocotte took the tears for hers, as well as the deceiving kisses I gave her. Somehow, from that hour, I had a new vision. Dear Emily Sparks. Emily Sparks. Where is my boy, my boy? In what far part of the world? The boy I loved best of all in the school. I, the teacher, the old maid, the virgin heart, who made them all my children. Did I know my boy aright, thinking of him as spirit aflame, active, ever aspiring? Oh boy, boy, for whom I prayed and prayed in many a watchful hour at night. Do you remember the letter I wrote you of the beautiful love of Christ? And whether you ever took it or not, my boy, wherever you are, work for your soul's sake, that all the clay of you, all the dross of you, may yield to the fire of you, till the fire is nothing but light, nothing but light. Traynor, the druggist. Only the chemist can tell, and not always the chemist, what will result from compounding fluids or solids. And who can tell how men and women will interact on each other, or what children will result? There were Benjamin Pantier and his wife, good in themselves, but evil toward each other. He oxygen, she hydrogen, their son a devastating fire. I, Traynor, the druggist, a mixer of chemicals, killed while making an experiment, lived unwedded. Daisy Fraser. Did you ever hear of Editor Whedon giving to the public treasury any of the money he received for supporting candidates for office? Or for writing up the canning factory to get people to invest? Or for suppressing the facts about the bank when it was rotten and ready to break? Did you ever hear of the circuit judge helping anyone except the Q Railroad or the bankers? Or did Reverend Pete or Reverend Sibley give any part of their salary earned by keeping still or speaking out as the leaders wished them to do to the building of the waterworks? But I, Daisy Fraser, who always passed along the streets through rows of nods and smiles and coughs and words such as, "There she goes," never was taken before Justice Arnett without contributing $10 in costs to the school fund of Spoon River. Benjamin Fraser. Their spirits beat upon mine like the wings of 1,000 butterflies. I closed my eyes and I felt their spirits vibrating. I closed my eyes, yet I knew when their lashes fringed their cheeks from my downcast eyes, and when they turned their heads, and when their garments clung to them, or fell from them in exquisite draperies. Their spirits watched my ecstasy with wide looks of starry unconcern. Their spirits looked upon my torture. They drank it as it were the water of life. With reddened cheeks, brightened eyes, the rising flame of my soul made their spirits gilt, like the wings of a butterfly drifting suddenly into sunlight. And they cried to me for life, life, life. But in taking life from myself, in seizing and crushing their souls, as a child crushes grapes and drinks from its palms the purple juice, I came to this wingless void, where neither red, nor gold, nor wine, nor the rhythm of life is known. Minerva Jones. I am Minerva, the village poetess, hooted at, jeered at by the yahoos of the street for my heavy body, cockeye, and rolling walk, and all the more when Butch Weldy captured me after a brutal hunt. He left me to my fate with Dr. Myers, and I sank into death, growing numb from the feet up, like one stepping deeper and deeper into a stream of ice. Will someone go to the village newspaper and gather into a book the verses I wrote? I thirsted so for love. I hungered so for life. Indignation Jones. You would not believe, would you, that I came from good Welsh stock, that I was purer blooded than the white trash here, and of more direct lineage than the New Englanders and Virginians of Spoon River? You would not believe that I had been to school and read some books. You saw me only as a run-down man with matted hair and beard and ragged clothes. Sometimes a man's life turns into a cancer, from being bruised and continually bruised, and swells into a purplish mass like growths on stalks of corn. Here I was, a carpenter, mired in a bog of life into which I walked, thinking it was a meadow, with a slattern for a wife, and poor Minerva, my daughter, whom you tormented and drove to death. So I crept like a snail through the days of my life. No more you hear my footsteps in the morning, resounding on the hollow sidewalk, going to the grocery store for a little cornmeal and a nickel's worth of bacon. Dr. Myers. No other man, unless it was Doc Hill, did more for people in this town than I, and all the weak, the halt, the improvident, and all those who could not pay flocked to me. I was good-hearted, easy Dr. Myers. I was healthy, happy, in comfortable fortune, blessed with a congenial mate, my children raised, all wedded, doing well in the world. And then one night, Minerva, the poetess, came to me in her trouble, crying. I tried to help her out. She died. They indicted me. The newspapers disgraced me. My wife perished of a broken heart, and pneumonia finished me. Mrs. Myers. He protested all his life long the newspapers lied about him villainously, that he was not at fault for Minerva's fall, but only tried to help her. Poor soul so sunk in sin, he could not see that even trying to help her, as he called it, he had broken the law, human and divine. Passers-by, an ancient admonition to you. If your ways would be ways of pleasantness, and all your pathways peace, love God and keep his commandments. Butch Weldy. After I got religion and steadied down They gave me a job in the canning works, and every morning I had to fill the tank in the yard with gasoline that fed the blowfires in the sheds to heat the soldering irons. And I mounted a rickety ladder to do it, carrying buckets full of the stuff. One morning, as I stood there pouring, the air grew still and seemed to heave, and I shot up as the tank exploded, and down I came with both legs broken, and my eyes burnt crisp as a couple of eggs. For someone left a blowfire going, and something sucked the flame in the tank. The circuit judge said whoever did it was a fellow servant of mine, and so old Rhodes's son didn't have to pay me. And I sat on the witness stand as blind as Jack the Fiddler, saying over and over, I didn't know him at all. Nolt Hoheimer. I was the first fruits of the Battle of Missionary Ridge. When I felt the bullet enter my heart, I wished I had stayed at home and gone to jail for stealing the hogs of Curl Trenery, instead of running away and joining the army. Rather 1,000 times the county jail than to lie under this marble figure with wings and this granite pedestal bearing the words, Pro Patria. What do they mean, anyway? Lydia Puckett. Nolt Hoheimer ran away to the war the day before Curl Trenery swore out a warrant through Justice Arnett for stealing hogs. But that's not the reason he turned a soldier. He caught me running with Lucius Atherton. We quarreled, and I told him never again to cross my path. Then he stole the hogs and went to the war. Back of every soldier is a woman. Frank Drummer. Out of a cell into this darkened space, the end at 25, my tongue could not speak what stirred within me, and the village thought me a fool. Yet at the start there was a clear vision, a high and urgent purpose in my soul, which drove me on trying to memorize the Encyclopedia Britannica. Hair Drummer. Do the boys and girls still go to Sievers for cider after school in late September? Or gather hazelnuts among the thickets on Aaron Hatfield's farm when the frost begins? For many times with the laughing girls and boys played I along the road and over the hills when the sun was low and the air was cool, stopping to club the walnut tree standing leafless against a flaming west. Now, the smell of the autumn smoke and the dropping acorns and the echoes about the vales brings dreams of life. They hover over me. They question me. Where are those laughing comrades? How many are with me? How many in the old orchards, along the way to Sievers, and in the woods that overlook the quiet water? Conrad Seaver. Not in that wasted garden where bodies are drawn into grass that feeds no flocks and into evergreens that bear no fruit. There where along the shaded walks vain sighs are heard and vainer dreams are dreamed of close communion with departed souls. But here, under the apple tree, I loved and watched and pruned with gnarled hands in the long, long years. Here under the roots of this northern spy, to move in the chemic change and circle of life, into the soil and into the flesh of the tree, and into the living epitaphs of redder